City Commission special call meeting. Today is Thursday, March the 5th, 2026. It's 1 o'clock. And we have a very brief, very short agenda, but we'll be here for a little while. So first item on our agenda, the only item on our agenda is a budget kickoff discussion led by our city manager. So Mr. Coffey, you and your staff, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. So this presentation was a little hard for me to really formulate in my head. And as we go through the discussion, you'll kind of see why. I really feel like that we're kind of in a flux with the national economy and all these things that we'll talk about here in a minute, which makes where we're at difficult to really just say, well, this is obviously a direction we should go. And then as we get into it, as we moved into it, and you can go to the next slide, we really led ourselves to realize that this is going to be a pretty stagnant budget year in terms of what we would recommend as staff so with that, we'll talk about the budget process again and remind you that this is the kickoff meeting. This is a discussion to make sure we are starting to head in a direction that you all want us to go. We'll do the year-end review, the department presentations. We'll start to work towards a draft operating, and then we'll deal with the community agency and the capital programming and economic development. The goal is to have a first draft then that we're working through by the end of April, and then working through towards a final draft for that first week in June. The next slide is kind of where we are. The budget is the policy that you all establish in numbers, and we want to align the decisions that are in our budget with the strategic priorities from you all. And then again, we want to confirm the direction that the department heads are putting money in their budget with your priorities. And with that, at the end of the day, it's that sentence we talked about last year: is we want to begin with the end in mind. So then I'm gonna turn it over to Lee next and let her talk through it, because what I want to do is interact with you all as an observer for right now. But you've got the end of so we did a strategic plan 23 to 26. We're at the end of that now, which that's kind of why we don't really have something immediately we can point to and say what's next, is because we're kind of at the end of that last iteration of strategic priorities. And then we have all these ongoing projects going on. And so really, for me, it's, if we're going to begin with the end in mind, the recommendation that ultimately you'll find at the end of the presentation is we really want to revisit and redo that strategic priorities, and then how do we do that? And yeah, it is. Yeah. And she's about to get into that document a little bit, but so that's kind of where we're at is from my perspective, and then we'll repeat this towards the end at the economic outlook. I think nationally there's a lot of uncertainty with what direction, what industries are taking the lead. And I think because of that, there's a lot of status quo going on. There's a lot of things that are just sitting here waiting for the other shoe to kind of take a step. And which industry is it, manufacturing, or is it medical, or what industry is going to change the most? And therefore, where's the investment going? And therefore, that's going to dictate what happens in our community, and then that's going to dictate what happens to our revenue and expenses, because that's going to cause us to have to react ultimately. And so I think over the next 12 months, our priority will be reestablishing what our beginning is, and where do we want to be in 20 years? What do we want our community to look like? What does Danville look like? And so you'll find that's ultimately our recommendation. But I think it's a reflection more of it's not a confused economy, it is a economy getting ready to transition into the next iteration itself on a national level. That's what information we're getting. And depending on tech or manufacturing or what takes the lead in that is really what happens to us. And so with that, let's get into our local priorities that you all established. Now I'll let Lee run through the next few slides, and then we'll get back into that and see where you're all.
Could you tell
thoughts.
Jenna to put her vodka away? It's kind of distracting me.
I just requested she share, that's all.
Either way.
You know. No, like Earl said, a good budget process, starts with the end in mind, where we want to go, because a budget is a policy document. I think sometimes as department leaders and staff, we sometimes forget that because we're worried about, how can I spend this money to get the job I'm working on done? But it is a policy in that we're trying to accomplish the city's objectives and goals. And we like to keep that in mind while we're creating the policy. We do want to align, our financial decisions with our strategic priorities. And we do want to confirm that, Earl mentioned that a little bit, that we'll talk about, confirm the direction we want to go for the future. But we did want to kind of look back and say at our strategic plan and where it has led us, because sometimes we forget all the things we have gotten done in the last 4 years. As you guys remember, our strategic plan had resulted in 7 overall objectives: regionalism, economic development, infrastructure, parks and recreation, affordable market rate housing, workforce development, and communication and transparency. And as we begin our fiscal 27 budget process, we want to review these and how they represent the direction that we went, and how we can use those objectives in the current budget process. So you can read the text a little better on your handout, but within each overall objective, you had goals within your strategic plan to help meet that objective. I won't go through all of these because there were a lot. And Melanie, who unfortunately isn't here today, was able to give us these charts to kind of connect how your goals have met your objectives with projects that we have started and completed and that are still ongoing. Regionalism, for instance, your US 150 Water Commission hits a lot of your goals for regionalism. It helps with housing. It helps with your economic development. It helps collaborate with your regional agencies. Your parks and recreation, while it's its own objective, it also is a goal of regionalism. Our parks programs bring in participants from communities surrounding the city and from farther away through tournaments and through the specific programs that we have. Our wayfinding has helped promote regionalism. Our new Pine Knob Trails is going to help bring in folks to the area for that specific type of park that's not available every other city you go to. Economic development, that's a big one. A lot of the projects that we do and have initiated help influence and impact economic development. Your downtown project was a huge impact to economic development. Your support for your shared and community agencies helps support economic development. Your participation in the planning and zoning comprehensive plan helps support your economic development. Traffic safety helps support economic development. So you are participating in many things, supporting financially, supporting through, work by the commission, by staff. You're supporting a lot of these goals in various ways. Your infrastructure, we've had a ton of infrastructure that has impacted your goals. Airport access to the airport road grant is a big one. That we've also supported the airport in various ways over the years. Expanded water and sewer capacity through your wastewater treatment plant upgrade that's in the works. Spears Creek project, your Lebanon Road project. We've had several stormwater projects. Your cemetery, that's kind of an ongoing project that we looked at and have circled back to and paused. And your streets and roads through various sidewalk projects and your Safe Streets for All grant. Like I said, there's a lot of things, so we won't go through each individually, and there's more coming. Your Parks and Recreation, some of your goals were to explore aquatics, which is still ongoing through our collaboration with Ephraim McDowell for indoor recreation. Your expanded Parks Master Plan to review those, the existing facilities and improvements that we could make. Your Jenny Rogers Community Center, we've completed that project. The new child care facility that has recently opened. Lots of grants for projects through parks, including your Stanford Trail crossing, playground equipment grants. Your affordable housing, the 2025 Planning and Zoning Comp Plan and Flume support that effort. The Downtown Master Plan supports your effort to create housing, and your 2025 Planning and Zoning Comprehensive Plan. We've worked with the Boyle County Homeless Coalition. We fund community agencies where their goal is to support folks that need assistance. The zone change for 447 South 3rd Street. So that, those are all items that we've taken action on or have participated in to help support affordable market rate housing in the city. Your workforce development, we've at the city have had internships to help support students. We've participated in job fairs and school presentations. We've partnered with Danville High School and the Bonner program at Center. We've partnered with CenterWorks to participate in programming they've done for jobs and for small businesses. We've done a lot to achieve a 96% retention rate here at the city. That's a goal HR has kind of set for itself. So as an employer, we try to work for workforce development. We've expanded safety training, leadership development, and educational assistance program at the city. We've also partnered with community agencies to support entities like Shepherd's House or ASAP that help those workforce development initiatives. We also use code enforcement to address unhoused individuals and families on occasion. It's not often, but that is one way that folks don't necessarily associate with workforce development, but that is a tool that we have in our toolbox. And then communication and transparency. So we work closely with a lot of agencies. We have started sharing community information on our website and our newsletter, trying to get the word out about events and activities going on in the city, not just city initiatives, but community initiatives. We work on sharing information with our CVB, We've redesigned our website in the last several years to help make that sharing of information and finding of information a lot easier. Our social media expert, Melanie, has done a great job growing our Facebook followers. We have added a LinkedIn page. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but we share LinkedIn and post a lot of the economic development stuff gets shared there as well, along with our Facebook and website. We have a weekly newsletter, bill inserts into our water bills, podcasts, social media updates, website, blog posts, submissions to the newspaper, hosting your public meetings and educational series, and working with other agencies to share all that information. So the next 5 slides, are specific actions that we have completed or undertaking in fiscal '26.
And there's no great way to demonstrate that other than just show it to you as a list.
Yeah.
And we can go through those one at a time if you want, but I would suggest to you to take a few minutes and we'll go through there and touch on some highlights. For example, the it goes, you got different perspectives about halfway through the first slide. You've got design and install new welcome to Danville gateway signs. That's an ongoing effort. You see those going in. That was a lot of effort that Josh put in. There was man hours there. There was expenses there that was in the budget. There was Melanie putting forth a lot of effort. There was outreach to confirm. There was expenses in terms of actually putting it in. Then immediately after that is you'll see that we were awarded the $12.6 million Safe Streets for All grant, right? And so that's the type of variation you get on this list, like you've got from one end to the other. But the collective list represents the input of staff towards those objectives. And if you skip through there, what you'll see is that there's a lot that this community and this city, all of us included, and you all, that we've been able to accomplish. And I think you should be proud of. You know, all the way down to what Marshall mentioned at the last meeting on the next slide is completed 6,000 utility work orders. So when we were talking about adding an employee to wastewater rehab, that type of expenditure helps achieve that objective, right? And going on down, you know, painted the water tower on the bypass, completed Spears Creek pump station improvements. We received 2 significant utility awards. One being named a finalist is a component of the award, the wooden bucket for the Rural Water Association at the water plant. Skipping down to the next thing, we get into some more administrative things with issued 19 food truck permits. That's something that I think is a growing number, and that does impact your local ambience. And when you're having a community event, is having those food trucks there. You see them at farmers market. You see them at all those. Any event, you'll see food trucks at now, including our corner on 4th and Main. You'll see food trucks there on a regular basis. Impressed by Melanie's ability to do a couple things. One, the city's Facebook page now has 12,400 and change followers, which is turning into a fairly robust way to communicate outwardly. And then coupled with that is expanding the newsletter. We now have nearly 1,000 subscribers to the newsletter, which is turning into a pretty big number. Yeah. The next page is we've worked on the business license system. We have 302 new business licenses. We completed replacing our legacy phone systems with the Ring Central system for all the phones. Audrey, you can sit, there's a seat down there at the end. Yeah. Yeah, for the budget meetings, we sit down there with the tables. Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. The integrated emergency medical dispatching software into the CAD system downstairs was grant funded. We responded to 853 collision reports. That represents a lot of work in the PD and fire to clear those scenes and do. So that list of accomplishments, if you sit down and really dive into it, there's just a lot of work that staff and the city commission has weighed in on towards that 23 through 26 strategic objectives. And I think, you know, when you step back and take a breath, there's a lot there, right? Which then, going to the next slide, and we'll continue on into the conversation. So this is where you get to the discussions of are we leading well? Are we, and this is meant to be introspective, both of staff, employees, and also the commission. Are we leading well? What needs course correction? What does winning look like, and what should Danville look like in the next 25 years? You know, those are our primary budget questions. What are we doing with the money that we're reinvesting? And so as we try to address those questions internally, if we go to the next slide, this is where we go to this question: where do we go from here in this budget process? And this is when we start to settle in and ask some questions and interactions with you folks. So our strategic plan is kind of expired. So this is the last year of it, 2026, which the pressure we're feeling with the national economy of it being in a status quo mode makes us feel like 26, our biggest priority from staff's perspective as a recommendation to you is we need to continue to work on the ongoing projects. We need to continue to pursue those. We don't have necessarily a lot of new budget requests, and therefore we're continuing to work on our workforce internally. We have gone through a lot of administrative changes this year, so we want to continue to implement those and get folks settled into new roles in multiple departments and just push the existing projects we have. So Donna, Commissioner Peak was asking yesterday about an update on some park projects like the indoor rec center. We know we got to continue to push that. So I really feel like our baseline budget this year should be fairly simple in terms of it's let's push our existing projects. We continue to push those. Things take a while to get done. And so to me, our baseline budget is really a reflection of that philosophy. The baseline budget we're going into is a reflection of let's sustain what we have going. Let's try to continue to knock some of those out. This is the last year of the 23 to 26 strategic plan. Let's finish those initiatives. Let's finish that out. Now then,
Should we do that again, you think? I mean,
so that's why we and I appreciate Melanie and Lee developing this slide, because that's this next series of questions. What do we do from here beyond that budget? What can we do in the calendar year and fiscal year of 26, 27 to both conclude the previous plan and chart a path forward? So you got two different ways you can do that, really. We can take a minute and develop a short-term new strategic four-year plan, or you can take a broader look, which Commissioner, and I hate to name Commissioner Peak every time, but she was the one that verbalized this to me. And so we'll name her again. Commissioner Peak said, asked the question rhetorically, is this a year where we really focus and redevelop that 25-year plan and 25-year vision for the community? Being a year where we're pushing normal projects and we're not talking about starting new initiatives, maybe this is a good year to really engage a lot of man-hours in trying to do option two, so that when you get into next year's budget cycle and next spring, then you're sitting there looking at, okay, we've got a new vision, we have a new plan, let's take our first 4-year bite at that apple to steer us towards that long-term vision, right? To me, that's kind of the way I saw our budget process and our next 12 months playing out, personally.
Couldn't we do
And that would
both?
be a recommendation, really, ultimately.
Couldn't we do both?
Yeah, that's exactly
I
what I'm
mean,
talking about,
because
right.
one's,
Yeah, do your 25-year vision and then peel out of that your first 4 years of work.
right.
Yeah, through the next 12 months, I would argue this is probably our biggest priority.
It's hard to, 25 years, that's a long time. I mean, you can have where you want to go, but there's things that get in the way, on the way, that I guess the 4-year plan can maybe help alleviate. So I think doing both of them is a good idea.
So you gotta be careful and not try to do it every year, really, because your municipal projects take forever to do. We're gonna be proposing to design the wastewater plant this year. Marshall's got access to the Fund B money to do that with. So as you go through that process, that means you're gonna be considering when you go to construction over the next 12 months. And that would be a future budget decision. So those projects take a while.
And that's what I was thinking, if you did the 4-year like we did before, couldn't we put in there the things we're accomplishing, the things that are ongoing, so that we know and we see it, and citizens can see it too, out of the last one, what's actually still going. And then, I think on here I don't see, but I think you need facilities. I would like to see like facilities updates. Where are we at on all our facilities? You had
Yeah.
mentioned like off
20
of,
years.
redryer, and then where are they at, and the police department, because I know they asked in the budget 2 years ago. I mean, just a
Yeah.
facilities update, maybe not, know where
Totally.
we're going.
We can give a verbal update on that right now. It's just that when you got into the police investment of that building, the cost is a number, but you're really not getting a return on that expense to just renovate it, because you're not adding square footage. You're not really accommodating their long-term survivability. This building for them, was designed 20 years ago. It was conceived in the 2006, 2007 era. Well, we're 20 years into the building life, and we've grown since then. And so, to your point, one of the things I would like to do as we're going through this 25-year vision, to accompany that, probably what I would suggest is, in the same way we had a consultant last time do building programs for us, you really don't, most folks skip that step. When you're talking about your facilities, it's important to understand how many people you have, who requires an office, and if you have an office, how much square footage is in that office. So you may have one office that's 10 feet by 10 feet, well, that's 100 square foot. But you may have another competing office that may need to be 200 square feet. So from that, you start to develop a square footage need. That's your building program, right? From that, then we can make decisions on how much of the police department could be in the third fire station. Maybe that turns into a public safety building. We held the fire station discussion, looking at the police, and now that that's not panned out, we really got to go back to that discussion about that third fire station. Does it become a public safety building? Where is dispatch going? Does dispatch move into that building? And if so, how much square footage do they actually need in that facility long-term? And so that, to your point, that facilities plan would be nice to do that in conjunction while we're working on this 25-year plan. Because that is a 20-year plan with your facilities. Yeah.
Would we have someone come in again and help facilitate that?
You do
Okay.
want to hire an architect, because some of those.
Because it
you-
worked well.
Yes, you want to understand what the utilization is for your building space. So you want to say, well, if you're going to have a meeting room like this, you need 10,000 square feet for X, or whatever that is. If you're going to do an EOC, we want to not speculate on how big that is. With staff, we want an expert to help us say, well, you've got two different styles of EOCs. This is what one would look like, so that you understand how big that actually needs to be. So yeah, you do want an expert doing that.
I think you would also want an expert to help, like we had KLC, whether it's KLC or someone else, lead the, strategic process as well, just so that it's them, so that essentially you as the board are deciding that strategic plan and long-term goal rather than staff providing you get suggestions. Well, our suggestions are fantastic and great, right? That really, the direction should come from the board. And there, I think that method allows you all to be a little more imaginative, creative, and give us direction and guidance.
Staff needs to be a resource through that process, not leading that process. City staff needs to be taking that ultimate conclusion and trying to help implement it, not necessarily decide what that ultimate conclusion is. But if you all have a question during that process, we need to be present to address those questions.
I think KLC, I think they did a good job. Tad did a good job when he was here the last time, in my opinion.
They did a great
I
job.
think they did a great job guiding and not, he really helped us.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of where our head's at with really, so the biggest budget initiative that I can kind of see our budget process taking the shape of being stable with our existing budget. No, you're going to see probably a low change year on revenue naturally because of all those national economic factors. So therefore, our expenses should be relatively flat, and we should focus on our existing projects and then really dive into what the process needs to look like to establish what our next 25-year plan looks like, including the facilities plan. Yeah. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go through this town hall series of meetings probably where you're really doing a deep dive into that strategic plan, strategic vision process. You're going to try to establish expectations for infrastructure priorities, growth versus preservation. Danville is getting a lot of pressure. We've worked on economic development. You're in that economic development space. You're really getting a lot of attention with retailers seeing the Danville bypass as the intersection of folks trying to get to services, goods and services from rural parts of the area around us. So Danville's going to have to lean into that role a little bit, and Danville will necessarily have to allow some commercial expansion to accommodate the 150, 175,000 people that live in that 20 mile driving distance to us. And so how do you maintain your identity through that process? So we're going to have to gauge and hear from the community on some of those issues, and including hearing what quality of life investments do we need to emphasize, things like that take a while to develop and build. So I can see a lengthy, robust period of public engagement with that, and certainly that could take beginning this spring, that could take most of the summer and fall, honestly, so that by next winter you all are diving into what we've learned. The next slide is really what we were talking about in terms of economic outlook. So we've tried to when we've considered revenue projections and things like that, that's where we end up at this quagmire with what do we recommend as staff. Lee and I have talked a little bit about it. As we've gone through our meetings with the City Managers Association, the conference was last week. As we go through that and hear some of the economic predictors and folks starting to talk about what's the trends look like. Really, I think overall, your next 12 months in the budget we're going into, the objective is to just avoid economic pitfalls. I think we have to manage expenses and mitigate risk as best we can while we're letting that national economy settle out on what direction is our economy going. And when I say it like that, under that looking ahead section, the second one, the 12-month trend, you have the tech world in our national economy and global economy, the tech industry, your manufacturing industry is through federal policies and things, your manufacturing industry is shifting. That could completely alter our local economy as the tech industry could completely alter your local economy. The medical industry is something too that is shifting. We have our hospital downtown. It's getting ready to have to make some facility decisions as the demand, as your baby boomers are aging, the demands on the medical community is increasing. So nationally, as these industries are reacting, I think we're not going to know those necessarily over the 12 months, but you're going to start to see a trend in each one of those, and that's going to affect ultimately then what path this community is on down the road. So you're going to see that national trend impact us over after this 12-month period we're in, which is why we're talking about avoiding those economic pitfalls of overcommitting to something right now, because I'm predicting, if I'm going to recommend something to you based on my research, I'm going to have to recommend change. Something's going to shift around a little bit, and I would argue that we need to be in a position to be mobile and adapt to whatever that change is. And so in the budget year we're going into, that's what I'm recommending to you. What I will say that Danville specifically is poised for growth in various sectors depending on what those external influences ultimately dictate. So for example, we have local leadership in place related to we have our hospital expanding. You have in redeveloping downtown. You have the EDC is positioned to do industrial recruitment in a very good way. A few minutes ago, I hung up the phone with JJ, and we were talking about some industrial type issues, and so I think that we are as a community positioned to react to that. I think the EDA, through the city and the county's efforts with the EDA, you have new industrial tracks available that are just basic roadside industrial tracks. You have the traditional industrial park that the BCIF still also a EDC partner has access to. We have a KPDI grant ongoing, putting a roadway in there, expanding more opportunity inside the existing Corporate Drive area park. You have the Norfolk Southern site that we're putting the access road in that's should necessarily be good property into the market. So I think in those first two segments with the hospital expanding, and we are continuing to be positioned to recruit from an industrial standpoint, and then two, you have partnerships in the tech side. So we can react with Center, with our partnerships with BCTC in that tech space. So I think Danville's in a very unique position compared to other communities. Our economy will naturally shift towards whatever segment. So that is not something that produces hesitancy or concern directly. It is one that you can be confident in, but what it just means is you have to be patient and let that play out as a city, in my opinion, right? So this is, like my theory that I've developed, and so please push back on that if that doesn't sound appropriate. So looking ahead, I feel pretty good. So our budget philosophy for the next year is maintaining financial sustainability, make sure we have a good, normal, flat budget relative to projections of revenues and projections of expenses. We need to mitigate expenses, and we need to be conservative with our revenue projections in the next 12 months. We need to avoid structural imbalance, meaning we don't need to necessarily add a lot, add it to anything, add to any department. We need to take this year to do planning so that we preserve flexibility for that upcoming change that you can feel pressure in the industry, in the economic space, but you just don't know what that is yet. So that's a lot of words.
No, I agree, though. I mean, thinking about it before this meeting even, it just seemed like it's one of those years to kind of err on the side of caution, and then if things turns out better than you think they might, then you can adjust accordingly. But I guess hope for the best and prepare for the worst would be probably the best idea, and I think that's what you're sort of proposing there. And to do what we do, I mean, we do it really well, but to do it, take that time to do it better. I mean, work on some economies or whatever we can do that don't cost any capital money. So, I don't know. But you're right. I think what you said is correct. But I did read, Mr. Atkins sent us something that said city commissioners can make up to $97,000 a year, so I do think we ought to pencil that in.
I sent that to him. Is that what he said? I'd like to see that.
I think the decimal was in the wrong place. That was 970 a year.
Wrong decimal and too many zeros, right?
But I like the presentation, and I like the message, and I agree.
Well, you all didn't mention personnel. You mentioned facilities, but I guess part of this option 1 and option 2 also needs to be a look at personnel as well, though.
Yeah, I think as part of the long-term, 25 years, it's hard to imagine what staffing will look like. I don't know what our staff level was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But I know since I started 4 years ago, we've, increased headcount in some areas, but we've also decreased it strategically in others. And I think that's kind of always the goal on that front. But
We've been very conservative with
Yeah.
personnel.
Well, we always try to remember as staff, Randy and I talk about this all the time, right? You can do $1 million capital project that does last the community for 20, 25 years, but you have to, when you hire an employee, you have to assume that their salary, their benefits, their retirement is also around for 25 years. And adding, 10 new employees every year could potentially make that long-term health of the city financially unstable. So you have to consider what's sustainable and what's not, and what those staff do to meet your needs long-term, right? What's the goal you're trying to accomplish by adding someone, and what's the best strategy to do that? I think Randy and Earl do a good job of considering all that when adding new people.
And to me, that's a compliment, because we now have people who are full-time and doing full-time responsibilities in one area. Not having a full-time person trying to be responsible for 2 or 3 areas. I think about the basement, the staff and the office in the basement now. Now, that took a little time, but that was well deserved, well thought out. I look at the administrative side. We've gotten the mayor who's lost 2 offices within 1 year, so it's just, but again, well thought out, well planned, increase in personnel. And then first responders, personnel has increased, but I think it's been very timely, and you just need to continue to be cautious, but at the same time, be considerate of personnel about their work and their salaries and their other benefits. And I think you all have done a very conservative approach to it, and we should be, the community should be appreciative of that. In spite of what the commissioner's salaries are or not, I should say, right?
I just think I mean, and you have to and I know you do, but we also have to think about as the city grows, you can't overuse people to where they burn out or, I mean, I know you all watch all of that, but still you have to hear what the departments are saying, make sure we're listening to make sure we're not overworking, I guess, some departments or, you know.
There's a lot, that matters.
Because you look at the numbers of
Yeah.
calls, like there was like, I don't know, almost 1,000 in the police, and I think for 3,000, I don't know if that was just fire and police, but that's 911 and police and fire, and then you've got public works that, you know, I'm sure they worked around the clock during the ice storm, because they don't have 50 employees in the water department, so you've got to look at all of that, I think, and I'm sure y'all, I know you do, but.
Yeah, part of that long-term vision, there will necessarily have to be a component of that. That is your evaluation of number of man-hours you got available to do on the water side, we did 6,000 work
Right.
orders, so that's a lot. And so how many people, how many per hour, how many per day? There has to be some analysis of that.
Right,
We
because
agree.
as Danville grows, even out on, you know, the bypass, I call it, I mean, every business that's there is increasing traffic and increasing accidents and increasing, you know, so it's manpower that's got to be used to work all of the accidents that are out there, you know? So, just a thought, I know you all think about that, but I just want it not to be forgotten that we don't want to overstress the departments. We want to always watch to that, or I think that's important, because that's what makes Danville good is our employees.
What are you thinking, Earl, about, or short term, about the department's capital request, just their normal yearly capital request?
You're gonna expect operating capital. I would suggest to you, which are just normal requests, equipment, cars, whatnot. I wouldn't necessarily add a lot of structural capital right now, other than the projects already on the book. So we know we're dealing with Parks and Rec, and we know we're dealing with the utility. I think on the general fund capital side, I think you need to do your facilities plan to really guide you at this point. We did, and I personally want the police department renovated. Like, for me, when I go in, it needs modernized. However, it's tough to modernize that if that's not if that space utilization isn't right, So you're better off to make long-term decisions. Just like the decisions were made in this building, the reason this building has worked so well over the last 20 years is because there was a lot of effort went into planning the square footage needs in this building. So we knew that we were adding, 18,000 square feet for the police to have access to. We knew how many officers we had. The officer per square foot made sense. So we need to make sure that that number is correct moving forward. Same thing for dispatch. We need to continue to modernize our dispatch, modernize that service, because it is really that interface and tip of the spear, really, between the person needing help and the person providing that help. So we've got to continue to make sure that environment is inducive of good interface performance. Level of service measurements. We were talking, I ran across an article, Donna, that you'll find interesting. Remember a long time ago, we were talking about performance measurements? And remember, we struggled with trying to define that. And really, the thought occurred to me over the last week, and I finally ran across this article. The AWWA has issued a document, a guidance document for utilities. And it's really not performance measurement, it's level of service measurement. And so that's something that I've, really happened on this week. And so what I'd like to do is take a minute and let all our department heads contemplate that and contemplate how they can streamline reporting to align with how to quantify a level of service and figure out a way to rate improvements based on level of service, because we're customer service, not performance-based. So a lot of the performance indicators, when you're talking about performance measurement, you get into construction data, production of number of widgets a day, some of those things, and that's really not what we are. So we don't really align with those mindsets. But what is the solution? And that's probably what it is, because it's a level of service. So we need to make sure we're achieving the level of service that you all want us to. That's those types of things. So I feel like this year, doing that long-term plan, you'll be able to have some of those conversations and to really try to dive in on how we do a better job as a city and how we continue to be a leader in Kentucky.
Other questions or comments?
I would like to see us do both options, 1 and 2. That's my opinion.
That's what we'll begin with that in mind. Yeah, I think we hear that from the group.
No, you just heard that from Donna, you heard from everybody else.
Well, everybody else was nodding at different times, so I'm reading the room,
I did
Yes, sir.
nod.
That's a-
an effort to read the room,
Read the room, all right.
so.
Do we have this, I don't know, you may have covered this and I missed it. It says 2026 accomplishments. Should that be 2025 accomplishments? Or is this?
It's fiscal year 26.
Fiscal
Okay, I
year.
got you. All right.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Y'all count your years different than I do.
Uh-huh.
So then the next to last slide is our budget calendar, just to make sure it's out there for you as a reminder. And it walks you through the normal process that we've used to develop the budget. We will have March 10th, the year-end review. We're heading in the correct direction to meet that meeting date, and so we'll be ready for that, and then we'll move into department presentations on the 24th. The 31st, we'll get into draft operating and revenue discussions based on kind of maintaining that idea of a flat budget, and then we'll proceed out of that meeting.
And this budget calendar has already been placed on our calendars automatically, so we should already have all these dates.
It has, other than, I believe, the Community Agencies Day and maybe the department presentations, they're all Tuesdays
Yeah, they're all
at
day.
1 PM.
9 o'clock.
Thursdays. No,
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
But they're at 9 o'clock.
Tuesdays at 1 PM.
Tuesdays at 1 is your
Your big
standard meetings.
Standard meeting time.
We got two
Yes,
of
because
them.
that'll be an all-day meeting.
Yeah.
Your community agencies on April 2nd, that's a
Thursday, and that's an all-day
Thursday,
meeting.
all-day meeting. And
We-
then,
We thought about having that on the 1st and letting Kevin crack jokes all day. But then we thought we wouldn't get anything done.
We'd be here all day, that's right. And still wouldn't understand his jokes, though. We'd be here all day.
I won't be here on the next meeting, on the 10th. I
Oh,
won't be able to be here. So y'all carry on without me.
okay. That's a busy.
So I struggled with this presentation with really trying to figure out what it looks like, and at the end of the day, that's why. And so it's what's in our heads, and we made an attempt to verbalize that today and depict some of it. And so I hope that is helpful with kicking off our process. There's not a lot to kick off. I feel like that we need to be considerate of all those other things.
Yeah, no. That's fine. That's what it is, so,
Yep, yep. And this document's fantastic. This is like a keeper right here.
Melanie,
to refer to,
Melanie
so
took
it's
my
amazing.
thoughts and ideas and Earl's thoughts and made it into a fully realized.
She's a little bit of a Lee Earl whisperer because she takes and distills all that junk down that's in.
Well, we get asked all the time, well, what have y'all done? Nothing, just ribbon cutting, and it's like, no. Here's 5 pages.
Uh-huh. I think
That
sometimes
our staff has done.
it's hard to remember sometimes because you're just on moving to the next thing. But without you all,
Yes.
providing the direction, we wouldn't have done anything, even including the ribbon cutting, so.
Is that on our website, you think?
That
It will
is,
be.
I believe a lot of it was sent out, a lot of the bullet points were sent out in one of the most recent water bills.
Okay.
So the public should have a copy of that in their hands in the near future. I don't think it's on our website.
I was just curious, because I think it's a good thing for people to know exactly what all the staff's up to 24/7.
Well, 302 new business licenses, that was a surprise, but a very positive surprise. Then right up under that, you've got 325 open records requests. To me, that's a negative, but.
Oh, no, the open records are transparency. That
Yeah, but
is
still, it's,
always fantastic thing.
so what?
I have good staff to help me with that.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of work to get those things put together for them, so, man. Yes. Other questions or comments? You've got all these grants that have been awarded, and we hear about them, throughout the year, but it's, to see them like this and underline them, quite a few successful grants have been written and awarded, so please keep that up. Yeah.
Well, and it's ones that are easy to forget. For example, you got a $250,000 land and water grant for the Millennium Park Performance Pavilion. So a stage at Millennium Park to build that, we got a $250,000 grant for that.
Yeah.
And so our approach is so we let the heart-lung study that's going on out there now establish some electrical connections. And so this summer, when we do our 4th of July concert, or the 250th concert, we're gonna set a stage up and we're gonna test that location and to see if that is a good location for the stage long-term. So that's a big deal. I mean,
And I always say there's no such thing as a small grant. All grants are big because they're free money. Sometimes we have to match, sometimes we don't match, but still, it's saving the taxpayers money. And if we don't get awarded the grant, somebody else in the state will get that grant money. So it's best to bring it on to them. Okay, other questions or comments? We meet again next Tuesday?
Tuesday at 1.
Tuesday at 1? Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the 10th, so I guess, Kevin, you're in town going to some of those other meetings? We start off next Tuesday, 9 o'clock. We're going to the Board County Fiscal Court meeting. And there's the walkthroughs at Tolliver. There's a homeless coalition meeting and lunch that day, Okay, yeah, a lot of good stuff, yep. So I guess the chair needs to entertain a motion to adjourn this special call meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
Let the time be notified that it's noticed that it's 4:00 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ladies. All those in favor of adjourning this special call meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.